talk to the people speaking. Sit right at the front so they can see your faces, so every time you nod, they can see you agreeing with them. But I would really like the lightning talk speakers to be sitting in the front row. So if you're not speaking this evening, thank you so much. And the other side of that request is, if your lightning talk card was up on the flip chart earlier today, please could you come to the front row. We've actually selected 12 talks this evening, which means that there's 0 time for me to be talking if everybody talks for 5 minutes. So we'll see how that goes. So I just want to be as efficient as possible. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 12. Do you have any more lightning talk speakers this evening? Anywhere else? Just stick your hand up. So we've got 10. That's fantastic. Here, excellent. Oh yeah, I had a conversation with Adam Johnson. Is Adam around? I see pointing, but I don't think that was aimed at me. Okay. Yeah. If Adam ends up sitting with anybody who's here and you see him, could you tell him that he's actually the last talk of the night, because he was... Oh, there you are. You're not in the middle, you're at the end. We put up 3 columns of cards on the flip chart. So it wasn't 8 rows or whatever it was. It was 3 columns. So yeah, the number on the card was the key thing, not necessarily where it was on the flip chart. So could we have Sean? Do you want to just come and plug in, and we'll see how that goes? Excellent. I think people are settling in. What's the time? I think we're time. Oh, excellent, 1 minute past. Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Oh, I have taught you well. So yeah, we have 12 fantastic sounding lightning talks for you this evening. It is genuinely, in the 3 years that I've been doing this for PYCON UK, this is the hardest day to choose the talks and work out what order we were going to put them in. It's just absolutely fantastic quality of submissions. So I am very excited to firstly warm you up with remember with the applause of sorry. If we get to just before 5 minutes, in case you weren't here yesterday, we will sort of gently clap with 2 index fingers. If you could all just try that around. It's a really weird sound, and it basically stops the speaker from being able to hold any conscious thought anymore, which is what I'm feeling right now. We'll do that. Basically means the speaker that you have one last sentence to finish, might give you 2, and then I'm going to do, wait for it, I'm going to raise my hands up in the air, and it's going to be a massive round of applause, which is just fantastically addictive. If you've never experienced it before, please stick an index card in the bucket tomorrow morning and join our final session of Lightning Talks tomorrow. And if you're still speaking when the applause finishes, we will cut off your microphone and assist you to leave the stage, because we're in a rush. So. Without further ado, and no clapping before they speak. We just clap at the end, except in this one occasion where you're going to clap for me leaving the stage. Thank you very much.
Hi, folks. I'm Sean, and I have ADHD. Now, if I didn't, this would be a very, very short talk. Normally, you may remember me from doing medical talks, first aid talks, but this is a much more personal medical talk. So this is about me. I am consensually disclosing my medical information to you. I have ADHD. Why am I doing this? I want to raise awareness of ADHD to people, because you may have co-workers, friends, family with ADHD, and you may know or may not know. And also, you may yourself have ADHD. Either you may know or you may not know. So talking about it is how we reduce the stigma about it. So very quickly, I am going to have 5 minutes to explain ADHD and myself with ADHD, which is far more than your doctor will give you. So, it is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is known also as attention deficit disorder, ADD, more in America than in the UK. It is a neurodevelopmental executive function disorder. What do I mean by that? Firstly, it's neurodevelopmental. It develops through your life. It comes up in childhood first. It cannot exist in adulthood without having first existed in childhood. Executive function is the part of your brain that gets you to do things. So I see a dirty sock on the floor, I need to put it in the laundry. I know I need to put it in the laundry, but I can't do it. And that's the executive function. And conversely, it also stops you from doing things, from being impulsive. So there are several different presentations, inattentive, impulsive, and combined. We have both. It used to be called types, and now call them presentations because it can change throughout your life. What is it not? It is not being lazy. It is not the same as just not being bothered to do something. It is you want to do it, but you can't. It is not being forever unfocused. You are sometimes too focused. You are sometimes so stuck on something you cannot tear your focus away and do something else. It's called hyperfocus, which is also quite unhealthy. And it's not the same throughout life. It can change. As a child, you can have certain behaviors, and as an adult, you can have different behaviors. It is not only hyperactive. Mine is inattentive. I struggle with focus for long periods of time. And it's not a boy disorder. Anyone can get it. It is equally likely in all genders, but it is woefully underdiagnosed in women, like many other disorders, including heart attacks, because, medical. So, quickly, how does it affect me? Because this is the personal side of it. I could give you lists on how it affects me. Instead, what I'm going to give you is the evaluation by my partner and former line manager, yes, same person, don't think too hard about that, to the psychiatrist. So we frequently have conversations where I can be halfway through a sentence and he's gone, attention elsewhere. Yeah, I could just be completely zone out, think about something completely different. I get bored or lose interest, resulting in last-minute panic work to complete things before deadlines. Happens a lot, less so these days, but used to happen a lot. Every employee assessment over 3 years was about coaching around self-organisation and task planning. Still haven't got any better. Have you reminded to get things done, like eating and drinking or taking the rubbish out? Constant reminders. Can you do that? I walk past it. I can see it's there. I know what he's doing. No. Brain just blanks out. And yeah, the number of half-finished projects around the house. I want to go and write this code. Oops, I just wrote a Galaxy generator in Unreal Engine 5. Is that relevant to my life? No. Just felt like it. Got bored, got focused on something else. So, diagnosis and treatment. It is commonly misunderstood by GPs. I went to talk to my GP about it, and he said to me, you've been talking for 5 minutes and you've got a job, what's your problem? Do you know why I have a job? Because when I get something wrong or I do something late, I stay up till 5 a.m. drinking coffee to finish that thing off so I don't get fired. That's not healthy. And that's what we call a disorder, is that you can have these traits, but it's not a disorder. It becomes a disorder when it affects your life in a negative way. So that list of things are all negative ways in which it affects my life, so it becomes diagnosable as a disorder. There's no one test. It is a subjective test by a psychiatrist based on your answers to a number of questions. I had to go private to get a diagnosis. It took 5 years to figure out, knowing that I was pretty sure I had ADHD, to get it sorted. It took me 5 years. It can be treated by medication and talking therapies. I am on medication. I'm on stimulants. One problem with them is that they do have downsides. So my heart rate is increased. My blood pressure is increased. My hands get cold because it reduces the circulation to my fingers. I have to wear fingerless gloves sometimes, so I look like Fagin from Oliver on conference calls. So it's not always a positive. Medication helps, but it doesn't always fix all the problems. It's also a Class B controlled substance, so traveling with it is an absolute pain. Yeah, I can't take that through customs. That's a lot of work. So yeah, that is me. That is ADHD. Here are some very quick. Please feel free to read them, look them up. This is the self-assessment questions. If you answer positively to 4 or more of them, maybe get yourself checked out, because hey, it's difficult. Thank you very much.
Good. Alastair? Excellent. So, Alex, you're next. Fantastic. Yes, I started reading the list, but I didn't manage to go all the way through. So yeah, we had a lot of submissions today, which was fantastic. If you weren't chosen, please submit again tomorrow. If you would like your card back so you don't have to write it out again, come and talk to me in the morning tomorrow sometime. I may be a little bit more available because I was frantically working on my workshop up until the last minute all morning today, so you wouldn't have seen me. And we have slides up, so I'm going to hand over to Alastair to tell us how to walk in a straight line.
Great, thanks. Like many of you may have done, I booked my travel here before the timetable was changed and never got around to updating it. So I got here on Thursday evening and found I had Friday morning free. So I used it to test my code. Quick show of hands, has anyone heard of Tom Davies, aka GeoWizard? Cool, a few people. He became a bit famous by walking in straight lines across countries, Norway, Scotland, Wales. Sometimes those walks seemed a little bit tedious. He put videos of them up, and it was a lot of open countryside and empty grassland. So I thought, well, hypothetically, would it be more interesting in a city? I live in London, so I started checking out, well, are there any straight line walks across London? I wrote some Python scripts to help me out with that, trying to find out what would be the straightest line across. There are buildings in the way, which makes it difficult, so you have to give yourself some margin for error, some leeway. And then on the way here, on the train, I thought, why don't I see if this works for Cardiff as well? So I'm going to share with you broadly the algorithm that I used. Firstly, OpenStreetMap already has the boundary of the city of Cardiff in data. Some of that looks like countryside, but it is all Cardiff. And take the ID, that bit, and then this is some of the code. I use the OSMNX Python package, which is brilliant, by Jeff Boeing. If he happens to be here, that would be cool. Forgot to put a box around it. Put the ID there. Just grab a data frame. The package does that for you. Turn the boundary into a polygon. Then you can just give it that polygon and say, give me all the walkable routes, in this case walk. You can also do driving or any public transport. Give me all the routes as a graph, connected as a network, which is brilliant. Then I did this to show it to you. That is the graph of all the walkable routes in Cardiff. It does not include motorways, railway tracks, other transport options. It's just pavements, public footpaths, that sort of thing. There's a bit of a gap bottom right, that is Cardiff Bay, the sea. You can't really walk there. Most of us can't, I don't think. And some of the stuff around the outside you can see is quite sparse because it's really the countryside. The next bit of the algorithm's a bit more complex. There are lots of ways to do it. I probably didn't do it the optimal way, but you've got a graph. You just need to find the straightest line in that graph. And I'll give you a second just to take a quick look if you can make out the lines and maybe guess where the straightest line might be. That's it. And from the center line there, that's no more than 100 meters deviation either side. And in the community of straight line walkers, there is a community. That's known as a bronze run. Goes all the way up to platinum at 25 meters, which is a really very straight line indeed. I got all that done actually in my hotel room, finished it off Thursday evening, and so the last thing to do was system testing. So I walked along that line. Had about, I don't know if you can see there, but bus just after 7 a.m., had about 4 hours to the conference started. And some bits were quite difficult. Very difficult. That's the GPS tracker I used just to check I wasn't going off course. And quick skyline of Cardiff. Learned some Welsh and got to the end just in time to come here for the intros on Friday. If you have any questions, yeah, thank you.
Great job. Great job, you too. That was loud, fantastic. yeah, Alex, if you'd like to get set up. Were you in the first time speaker bucket?
I was. I hadn't spoken when I put it in the bucket.
So you, 2 talks today then. Fantastic. Oh, great job. Really good. So this, Alex had some technical issues yesterday, so we've given him another slot today. But there's a certain amount of inherent risk to that, which we're now experiencing. Yay! You applaud twice.
Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you about a project that I've been working on in my spare time. Hopefully someone here finds it interesting. Just a quick note on the name. First time I'm saying this out loud, Esbonio. If there's any Welsh speakers out there, please feel free to correct my pronunciation. Esbonio. Cool. So, as the title slide said, it was a language server for your Sphinx projects, but some of you are probably going, well, what's a language server? When we write code, there's all these wonderful features that we expect now. You've got your auto-completions and your inline documentation and take me to where this is implemented and all those good things. Back in the before times, pretty much every editor had to implement that support for every language that came along themselves, and so everybody was doing different things. Some editors were better at this, some were better at that. But then, relatively recently, language servers came along, where basically all that logic of all the, where's my auto-completions, where's this defined, is done in like a third program. And then all the editors just talk to that instead. So then a new language comes along, a new server comes along, everybody's editors just work. A new editor comes along, they implement language servers, and then all the languages just work. It's wonderful. So, Esbonio. Well, Esbonio, I'll say it again. I guess the headline feature at the minute is just completions. So you want to add an image, it'll complete the file path for you. If you want to add a cross-reference to something, it'll do that for you. I guess my favorite feature, and the reason I started the whole thing, is that if you use into Sphinx references at all, it'll complete those for you as well. So you can just say, hey, I'm going to link to the logging documentation on the main Python documentation site. It'll just help fill all that out for you in a few seconds. And I guess there's a few other things it will do. Go to definition for a couple of things, outlines, and if you use the VS Code version, you get like a live preview as well. But it's all pretty work in progress, pretty flaky. And there's like a work in progress extension API. If you're interested, come speak to me. If you're interested, there's documentation on getting started. A number of editors are there. If yours isn't, come speak to me. We'll all figure that out and make it all wonderful. Or if the web version of VS Code is your thing, it also works there too, with the small asterisk that only DocuTils is supported at the moment. More technical problems have to be solved to get actual Sphinx working. But hey, come speak to me about that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Good job. I'm really glad we got that on stage. That was a cool project. Yeah, Larry, great job. Adrian, you're next. Sorry, there was pointing. Yeah, Larry's setting up now. You're next. Sorry, you're after Larry. I just try to give people a little heads up that they're going to be the next one on the stage. I actually failed with Larry. He had to catch my eye when I came off the stage. Yes, it's worth noting, when you're submitting a talk, I have been very clear about this. Put your name, the title, and a description on the card. A couple of the cards that we actually reluctantly rejected today that just didn't have a description on them. So sometimes the title tells you enough, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to get off the stage again, and Larry is going to tell you how to give your programs appeal, because there's an exclamation mark on it.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So Appeal is a library that I've wanted to write for about 10 years now. I first had the idea in 2012. I took a couple of running starts at it and didn't like the results, so I gave up and put it on the back burner. Finally, I took another try at it at the beginning of last year, and I was like, this is going great. So I finally have the library that I've wanted to write for a decade. So I'm going to do a live demo here. It's a little complicated, but we have 3 windows here. This left one is my editor window. I'm going to write the code in real time, more or less. This is a shell script over here. This is going to demo the thing for me, and the output is going to come in this 3rd window on the lower right, okay? So I'm going to start writing code. So bin env Python 3, that's how you do it. I'm going to import appeal. I'm going to create my application. So I should say, what is appeal? Appeal is a command line processing library. So this is the thing that's going to take the stuff off the command line and make it available to you in your Python program. How does it do it? It mechanically maps your Python code, your Python function, into the equivalent command line arguments. So you just point appeal at your function. You write your function the way that you want your function to take arguments, and appeal just turns the stuff in the command line automatically, mechanically, into command line parameters on the command line, and it turns it into the thing that you want your function. You're going to see it in a minute. So app equals appeal.appeal. We're going to create our application object, and I'm going to say at app.command. I'm going to make this function in a minute, and I just want to finish app.main. So that's going to grab argv and process it. So app.command, we're going to write a command, def add. This is going to be like git push or git commit. This is add is the git push or git commit thing. So add is going to take 2 arguments, let's say a and b, and it's going to print the sum of them. So a plus b. So this is already working. It's taking 3 and 8 and adding them together, but that gives us 38 because they're strings. So we don't want them to be strings. Let's make them integers. So I'm going to say b equals 0, a equals 0. Now they are, notice that the help is going to change. They're now optional, and they have defaults of 0, and they're also integers because it inferred from the fact that you said equals 0 that, oh, he wants this to be an integer. I'm going to add a doc string, add some numbers. And now that's going to show up in the documentation. If I continued on, the first line by itself is just the summary, so that'll be on the help screen, and all the rest of the documentation would be below. I'm switching windows here to see my notes for what I'm supposed to do next to demo to you guys. Okay, so what about an option? So these are positional parameters. Positional parameters on your function map to positional parameters in the command that you're writing. So let's add a verbose equals false. The special values here are false, true, and none. This is adding a command line flag, -- version or -- v, that will print out, well, we're going to add the logic right here. If verbose, print high. And now if I add -v here, it prints out high. But again, this could also be an integer, and we could say 0, or we could say 1. I'm running out of, I only have a minute and a half left, and I had so much to talk about. If you add numbers, like that's just going to be plus some numbers. Now I can add more numbers over here. Yep. I need to annotate, so you look at this, :int, and now those are all going to be integers. You could put anything you want there. You could actually, I'm going to see, I have one made at home. I'm going to add a class here, and I'm going to make an instance of that class. It's now required, but it is instantiating that because it looks at the annotation and says, oh, you wanted a C there. And then it walks up C and it looks at the arguments. So if you'll notice, C actually takes 2 arguments, an I and a J. Those are now on the command line. You pass those in, it instantiates the C for you and passes it into your function. So it does all this automatically for you. Look at how little I had to write and I get a command line out of it. So this does everything Click does. It does everything that docop does. It's still like pre-1.0, so I may still be fiddle with interfaces and things. But it does everything. Global parameters, you can have a default command, you can write your own custom parser. You can take a function there instead of a class. Appeal doesn't care. You can have nested commands like subcommands. You can validate your data. You can have mutually exclusive options. You can have built-in help. It already does it for you. You can have you can use a class and have methods be your commands on the command line. But please don't use it in medical equipment yet. Thank you very much.
It's always good when people manage their own time. Thank you, Larry. So we're about to have Adrian and Heather. Heather, you'll be next after Adrian. So yes, do put a description on your cards so we know what you're talking about. Yes, so I think I saw Larry give a lightning talk about 10 years ago, Minuteman. And I think you had so much to say that you didn't have time to take a breath in 5 minutes. And that was a very, very rapid-fire lightning talk, and I still remember it. It's very good. Yes, good. Take it away, Adrian.
Awesome. So if you ask any object-oriented programming enthusiast about what the most useful insights from their area are, right? They're going to say something like encapsulation or maybe design patterns. And nobody here in this room would argue that they're not useful concepts. But I'm here to advocate for a pattern that emerges in functional programming that gets a much worse reputation than that. So before that, here's a quick intro about me. I'm Adrian. My pronouns are they, he. That is, I go by they, but don't tell my parents. I'm a junior data scientist at JP Morgan. So, monads. First, I want to convince you that they're not only intuitive, but they come up all the time when you write real-life code. So, think of them as some spicy data types. When you want to work with some data, but you also want to do some other stuff. And when you work with this data, you don't want to care about that other stuff. So this other stuff, we call them side effects, right? And it's the first major pattern that emerges from functional programming. So now, for anyone that knows functional programming concepts, please cover your eyes and ears. This is not a formal definition, but in a simple way, monads wrap around the value, and they provide a way to retrieve this value, and then have a bind method that takes in a function that we want to work with the data we have, and makes it transform our data. So I'll show you why that's important. So let's say we have a data pipeline. We're doing some important transformation. In this case, we're squaring a list of numbers, very complicated. But let's say we also want to grab that data from somewhere and then store it back in maybe a database or S3. And we already have 3 things. Now think, we also want to do authentication and logging and whatnot, and maybe we have multiple steps to the transform. And things get out of hand really quickly. So from separation of concerns principle, you would think about defining a class that defines a data set and gets the data back, right? But the problem is now, if we applied to the transform function on our data set, we would get a type error, because obviously a class is not iterable, right? So we could go ahead and just change the transform function that we had to work with the data set. But then it kind of obscures the point of it, which is to work on data. It shouldn't care about data sets, right? So instead, bind comes to the rescue. So we define this bind function that does something very simple. It takes a function we want to apply on our data, it gets the data, it applies it on it, stores it back, and then it does that other thing. In this case, it stores it back to a file somewhere, right? Or think about logging, or monitoring, or access control. All of these could be done here. And then our transformation on the data works. Instead of obviously just applying the function, we pass it to a bind method. So we do dataset.bind and give it the function we want to run. And it will give us back a dataset. Again, so not just the underlying data, a dataset. So then we can work with it further, right? So this is useful again. Think you have 10 transform steps. It's getting out of hand really fast. You just care about the data, not how you process it. And some of you might see a pattern there. We can make it more Pythonic. That bind thing kind of acts like a decorator. I'll leave it as an exercise for the listeners. But you could figure out a way to transform that bind into a decorator that just transforms any function to take a data set. So again, final look. A monad, in our case, data set is a monad, has a value it wraps around, a way to retrieve that value, and a way to take any function we want to run on our data and make it work with the underlying value. as well as doing those other things it cares about. Again, in this case, loading or storing back to databases. But our function, the transform function, only cares about data, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Heather, if you'd like to get set up. Did you leave something behind, Larry? I did. Easily done. Colin, you'll be next. And then Max after that. At some point, I've left everything on a stage. There is something when you get that round of applause where your mind just goes blank, and then you maybe get an unexplainable urge to just get away from the stage as fast as possible. Are you ready? Excellent, fantastic. Take it away, Heather.
Hello, everybody. I'm Heather. So I'm going to teach you all about Chaos Game. So Chaos Game, it's not really a game like we usually think about games. It's a zero-player game. It kind of plays itself. So it starts out with 4 goalposts and a ball. And so you pick one of the goalposts and kick the ball halfway towards it. And then you select a different goalpost and kick it halfway towards that one. And every time you randomly select a goalpost different from the one you already selected. So we'll just go through that a few times. And eventually, after 40 or so iterations, we give up and we leave that ball where it is. So we repeat this with a few balls. Here, it's like less than a dozen, so it looks just kind of random. Now, if we repeat this with, say, a few million points, we'll get instead something that looks like this. So this is pretty surprising that with just like a few points and these really simple rules, we end up with this extremely elaborate figure. So this is the beauty of Chaos Game, is that it takes just like a little bit of randomness in a really simple game, and it produces something extremely elaborate and very like self-reflective shape. So we'll have some art appreciation, just showing off like a few of my favorite ones of these. These are 2 different ones that have been rendered side by side. Here's another one. These ones are based on 6 points instead of 4, and slightly different rules to pick how you decide which goalpost to go to next. And there's actually quite a few of these, so by varying the points and how many points there are, and the rules we use to pick which goalpost to go to next, we can actually generate like a huge variety of these different figures. So here's just a few, and actually there's like quite a few of these things. So here's every possible one with only knowing the last 2 steps in your memory and 6 points. So as you can see, there's a whole lot of these, and it is possible to enumerate them and classify them in this sort of taxonomy, but that's way too complicated for this talk. So instead, I will get to my next point, which is that the images I just showed you, I actually lost all the code for those. It's a little bit embarrassing. So I can't show you that. So I started working on a newer version. And it really just got kind of tedious. Like, you're typing, and every letter you have to press a button, and you get really tired of this after a while. It just takes up so much like space on the screen. So I figured I would just do this instead. Like, it's so much easier. Like, it's so much more readable. Yeah, because like code takes a certain amount of time to read each character. So if there's fewer characters, you can read it faster. You know what it does. So if we run this, it prints out the figure I showed you from the first slide. Thank you.
Right, Colin, if you'd like to get set up. Max, who's Max? You're Max, excellent. You're going to be next. We are more or less on schedule, which is fantastic. So, yes. I didn't have anything to say this time, but I do have a page of tractor jokes. What did the farmer say when he lost his tractor? Where's my tractor? No. There wasn't even a groan for that one. I think I'm going to have to follow that one up with another one. I don't normally do two, one after the other, and I'm not going to now either. So, yes, I've got your name on the back. Colin, take it away.
Hello. Thank you for accepting the talk. It was very short, very brief. And it suddenly came to me today with the abbreviated program that we have that I came to my first PyCon, feels like forever ago. And there was two particular people who welcomed me that are no longer with us. Mr. Winder, who's been mentioned a number of times, and also Mr. Pinner, one of the founders of this great organization that we have the privilege of attending. And as part of my introduction to this community, there was a way of learning. And it's great to see these great talks up here, some of them which completely went over my head. But it made me want to be better than I am. And what South Coast Pi and Civic Reactor before it, I haven't been at PyCon for about 8 years. I'm still trying to figure out how many years it was. But the last lightning talk I gave was about Civic Reactor, which had a focus on the aspects of why we are what we are. Why are we here? What do we want to do from this? And one of the aims is, from my perspective, to improve our skills, to learn things like TDD and BDD so we don't plant bombs in our code. Sorry, there's no other euphemisms in here that I can remember. But a lot of people who come here, like myself, have taught the language to themselves. And the practice that they have isn't, quote unquote, commercial. So what I started with Civic Reactor, Civic Reactor was a purpose to try and create AIM 2. I should have but the reason these are the other way around is this is where my focus should be. I'm a spiritualist, and I had a reading about a year ago who asked me, what do you do? And I said, well, I help people make software. And he said, remember what the key part of what you said was, you help. As developers, we're here to help people solve problems. And what I'm trying to do with this is to create a collective of people who have skills, who want to share them in a more pragmatic way. My background is more architecture, QA, solutioning. So I help to bring the other soft skills to the practice, to allow people to improve themselves. And the second one is to try and create a viable alternative to the consultancies that I work for. Because most of the recent consultancy work I've done has been irritatingly structured to, well, we can't do this because we won't get paid enough to do it. And that's not the premise of what I understand this community is about. So if you'd like to join the party, and I can remember how to use a slideshow, by all means, please contact southcoastpi@gmail.com. I think that leads to the Twitter account, which doesn't do much except talk about PyCon at the moment. And if you're interested, reach out, email, talk to me in person. I'm open, and I'm here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Max, if you could get set up, and then after Max, we will have Mark Shannon, who I think I tried to kick out of the front row, forgetting that he was speaking. Yeah, those thoughts about community, really gel with me, especially in this environment where this is a community conference and everybody buys a ticket, even if you're speaking. So it's like we come here to share as much as we do to learn. And I don't know about all of you, but I find that these conferences are a shortcut to sounding much smarter than you really are, because you're kind of stealing knowledge from other people. And on that note, let's steal some knowledge from Max. Take it
Thanks,
away.
Mark. On the note of theft, my name is Max. I'm a developer advocate at Vonage. Thank you, Mark. I've seen your name a lot in my commit history. So I just want to talk a little bit about something that's probably a bit of a change of pace. So I want to talk about a tool I discovered this week called SnakeViz, but I want to specifically tell you how this is going to help you get promoted. I promise it's not, okay, it's a bit clickbait, but like only a little bit, so it's probably all right. So why am I talking about this at PyCon? Well, a few things, but what I find is that I talk to lots of developers who find that they say, I'm doing really good work, haven't really been noticed at work yet, but I'm just going to do the next project, it's going to be all right. But I guess good and bad news, but I think that from my perspective, what I've seen is that developers need to get better at advocating for themselves and advocating for the work that they do. Because the work might be awesome, but it's not enough just to deliver that work. You've also got to have people know that you've done it, right? So what gets you noticed? And this is the next question on my lips, hopefully everyone else's too. But I think a few things. The first one is you've got to be a good dev, you've got to do your job, and you've got to do your job well. So you've got to find and fix code problems, you've got to advocate for yourself, but also you've got to advocate for the work that your team is doing. And most importantly, you've also got to, once you've done all that, you've got to tell people about it. You've got to show off what you've done. You've got to get that in front of the eyes who actually have to notice you, right? Does this seem fair so far? Does this seem like the right kind of vibe? Yeah, cool. I'm glad we kind of agree. Well, in which case, I've got very good news for you, which is that this tool, I'm not even taking this seriously, this tool lets you do all of the above, or at least it gives you a way to do all of the above, which is the important thing here. So I've just reformatted my slides, and I'm back. Cool. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. So basically, what I kind of mainly do in terms of the tech side of my role is I maintain an SDK that basically helps customers make API requests and calls. And what I wanted to do was get buy-in to actually make that library async, because I think that if it's doing requests, we're going to have a lot of stuff hanging. So what I basically did was wrote some code that ran this thing 100 times, called an API basically 100 times. And then I profiled that with cprofiler. And dumping those stats into a .prof file basically meant that I could use this magical tool called SnakeViz. So SnakeViz, what it basically does, this is how it goes. It eats a .prof file, it returns an interactive graph, and the result is that you get to show off what you've done. And you get to advocate for yourself. So I want to show you that real quick. I don't have too much time, so I'm not going to run the demo live, but basically, make this bigger. What we do here, this is the function, but profiled. So this is an icicle plot, how it works. Basically, these bars that you can see here, what they do is basically they show what's running and for how long. So underneath this bar, you can see the total thing took 3.42 seconds to run 100 calls. But underneath this, you can see that all of this time is really spent doing a few things, but really just connecting and disconnecting over and over again. So there's loads of points there where doing this in a synchronous way, connecting to an endpoint in a synchronous way, it's just hanging. You're wasting most of your time doing very little. And so taking this graph versus taking stats like this, taking this to your boss and saying, hey, look at these shiny pictures, also this is the problem, that gets the buy-in. And so that let me then make something async. And here's the async plot. No time to actually show the code, but here's the async plot. But you can see it's now running in like 0.3 seconds, so it's 10 times faster. But I was able to get to do that work because I was actually able to advocate for what I wanted to do. And then this was then the case I take forward and say, hey, now I've done this, let me write this library. Let me add async support to my library, right? So just summing up, how you get what you want. Use these kind of tools to show and steer the work that you want to do. Use them to advocate for the importance of the work you want to do. But most importantly, show how freaking great you are. That's what we're here for. Thank you. That's SnakeViz. Please use it.
Great job. So Mark, if you'd like to get set up. And then, who do we have next? So exciting. There's a name I can't say. Eshwari? Excellent. You'll be next. So we are doing okay. That will be our 10th talk of the evening. It is 1:45. We might make it. It depends. So yeah, are there any words that strike fear into a developer's heart more than I maintain the code base you wrote 5 years ago? Yeah, I could probably pad some time with a tractor joke if you like. Is anything happening? Right.
Shall I just do that slide?
It's not coming through. If you like.
Yeah, I can do that slide.
Excellent. Professional. Take it away.
Okay.
Mark.
I'm going to look at my slides to remind me. Okay, the title of the talk is How You Can Help Speed Up Python 3.12. So 3.11 is some amount faster than 3.10. How much is some amount? Well, it depends, and it depends rather a lot on the application. So the slide I would have shown you is that we've got, maybe it'll show up, maybe not, doesn't look like it will, does it? Okay, so we have a standard benchmark suite. It's got a bunch of benchmarks, and there's a couple of benchmarks on it. One's called Delta Blue, which is like a constraint solver. Another one is Telco, which benchmarks all the decimal stuff. We show basically no speed up whatsoever on the Telco benchmark, but we double the speed of Delta Blue. So basically, there's quite a range. So there's speed up between 0 and 100%. So 100% is obviously good, 0 less so. So this is where I now show you a picture of a snail. That snail represents how fast your code is, unless you provide us with benchmarks that represent the sort of domain in which you're working in. If all our benchmarks don't represent your program isn't likely to get faster because we try and do a sort of engineering data-driven approach. In other words, we look at the benchmarks, try and work out what's slow, optimize for the sort of common patterns and stuff like that. So I now have a slide with some URLs on, which I will read out. So basically, if you Google PyPerformance, one word, it's a github.com/python/pyperformance. This is the where we keep all the benchmarks and the tools for running the benchmarks and so on. You can submit a PR there or issues there for a benchmark. So if you've got a sort of domain you think is underrepresented, maybe make an issue and say we should have benchmarks for that. Obviously, if you can produce benchmarks, even better. A benchmark is basically a small self-contained program that we can time. If you want to look at our work, you can go to github.com/faster-cpython, and then there's ideas repo in that where we discuss all the ideas and things we're working on. Thank you.
There it is. I think once now we've had spoken word, next time you can do mime. So Sally, you're next. That will be our 11th talk of the evening. We're cutting it fine, but I think we might make it. And I know Adam's talk at the end Adam is a great speaker, so hopefully we get to fit him in. In the meantime, does that say connecting? Have we got something happening?
It's working, yeah.
Oh, it is. We've got very small text on the screen on a black background that nobody can see. So how did the farmer find his missing cow? He tracked her down. There we go. That's the kind of groan that we want. That's why I do it.
Saving her for a Saturday night. I love it.
People won't let me stop doing this. I think I threw away one tractor joke on the first time that I did this at PyCon UK, and now people won't let me stop. It's like being tortured in public. And I'm sure you all feel that too. And now that we have some slides up.
It's loading. All right, maybe I'll get started.
I'm going to let you go.
Before I get started, I thought I might introduce myself. I am Eshwari, and I'm the Director of Software Engineering at Wazuku. What do I do? If I'm not managing people and projects, I code because that's what I love to do, find problems and fix them. And this is my first ever talk in a conference, and I'm either being brave or really stupid, talking in front of such a big audience, and having written my slides just an hour before this. So we'll see how it goes. My first story is build versus buy in the context of application development. So what we do at Wazoko, and if somebody doesn't know Swahili, because you obviously should know that, so Wazoko means idea in Swahili. So we build an idea management platform for helping businesses run their innovation programs. So typically what happens is somebody buys a product, they run challenges on our site, and then they try to crowdsource ideas from a set of people trying to engage a wider community of people and get brilliant solutions to their problems. So the next question becomes like, how do I know that your tool is helping me innovate better or innovate at scale? I want data from your system. The first person came out, how many ideas are being generated in your platform? Are they being evaluated? Are they being completed? So we said, oh, that's very simple. We work in Python. I can write a Python script. So there's one small script, a few parameters. There's a query running, models.idea.objects.all, create an Excel sheet. I set up a job, and you get it every month, every week, whenever you want it. Brilliant. Worked for the first customer. Worked for the second customer. Third one says, no, I want this as well, but I don't want my column to be this, and I want my frequency to change. Before we knew, we had 1,000 lines of code, and we had 300 scripts and 50 jobs set up. And that was probably stupid. We should have done something faster. So we decided what we will do. This is a feature that has to be built in the platform. So let's start building analytics in our platform. Let's use D3. Let's use our usual API views in Django and back. Build dashboards, visualization. We went to Chart.js, did lots of things. But the application was growing much faster than us being able to build insights into the application. So ultimately, we decided we should do what we are good at, build a software for collecting ideas, managing ideas, and try to buy a solution for visualization and analyzing this data. So that's our current solution. And we went and bought a solution and integrated with our platform. Was that a magic bullet? Absolutely not. There was a lot of pain, a lot of tears, a lot of banging on keyboards, but we got the application working. So in conclusion, build versus buy. My opinion, when you're small, you might not have the resources, or you might not feel the need to buy, but as you grow and scale, you need to start thinking about build versus buy. But buy is not a magic bullet. It's like a marriage. You get a spouse, things might work, but you might not quite align with each other. At the end, you will make it work because you have to make it work. So that is my first story. My second story is a little bit more personal, and it's in the context of people management. It's a bit difficult for me to say this, but I joined Wazoko as an intern. I grew from being an intern to a software developer. I was among the first engineers, to a senior software engineer, to a team lead, and finally I was promoted being the director of software engineering. And I lead an amazing group of people at my company. So all the arguments that you have for buy when you build a software really don't work when you want to build people, right? Because when you actually build people and don't try to just buy them, what you get, and I think this thing says it best, you get rapid deployment. You get a tried and tested solution. Your initial cost might be slightly lower. And you get somebody who has seen your product and your company grow, and they integrate very well in your culture. So I think when it comes to people management, build works much better. But as an organization, you have to support and coach people to grow in that level. So I have been very fortunate to get that support from my company, but it is something I think all organizations really need to invest in if they want to grow their company successfully. That's my opinion. Thank you.
So I apologize for how I pronounced your name before. I usually try to check these beforehand to make sure that I have an idea of how to pronounce people's names, because it's a good thing to do. So in a moment, Sally is going to talk to us about who cares about data, if we can get the laptop plugged in. Does anybody know what sort of robot changes into a tractor? It's a transformer. It's how I tell them.
That's what I want.
That's what you want?
That's what I want.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. In that case, I'll get off the stage. Take it away, Sally.
Hi everyone, I'm Sally, and I can hear what you're thinking. Pub time. So I'm going to take you somewhere right now. We're in the pub. You're at an open mic session, and you're going to see some spoken word. So don't fall asleep, please. Grab your drink and get merry. So I work in data. So I analyze a lot of data, and for me, I'm quite interested in what happens with that data, what happens with my analysis. So that's what this spoken word is going to be about. First, though, to warm you up, I'm going to give you my favorite poem that I've written so far. That way. So it's called Upside Down on the Sofa. Sometimes when you're feeling down, flip your body upside down, swing your head and kick your feet. Remember, life ain't so sheet. So this next poem is heading back to data. So I work in health, so my next poem is about someone who goes into their local general practice, so their local doctor's surgery, and they're trying to register. And the idea is that they can't be represented by the simplistic ethnic labels that exist within the NHS, and it can lead to misrepresentation of sort of the computer trying to analyze them within the sort of real-life scenario, and it can potentially lead to sort of an identity crisis within themselves as well. So this one's called Who Do You Think You Are? Or an alternative name is Other and Another Other. So my birth mum is Sri Lankan and Maldivian. My birth dad is Nigerian and Taiwanese. At my local GP, all I see on the form is Other. The male receptionist ticks Chinese. And my final poem raises a sort of debate of who we trust with our data. And I think that's really big within the news at the moment. So it's just something to kind of explain it in a slightly different way. And the great thing about poetry and spoken word is that it gives you emotion, makes you feel, because it can relate to you, or actually it can completely go over your head, and that is absolutely fine. It's just finding different ways to connect with certain topics that work for you. So data isn't inherently bad. It's how it's used that can be unethical. So this one's called Facebook ads. I think you're really interesting. Please do tell me more, so I can use it against you to try to fix your flaws. If you don't buy my wares, I'm not concerned. Ultimately, it will help me learn. And my final poem kind of goes in a similar line. And it's a bit longer. Oh, wrong way. Oh, no, it is the correct way. Let me just zoom in a bit. This is also a GitHub online page account that you can access a few others. There's a few expletives, I apologize. But there's a few topics on there of different poetry that I've written. Keep going. There we go. Okay, I'll go on back. So this is called I Know You Better Than You Know Yourself. Didn't I tell you not to share personal details online? I know you leave the house at 6:45. I know you get to work just before 7:10. It was actually the clock-in system that told me, my friend. You then have a coffee around 7:35. I know because Fitbit said you were more alive. Your phone sends me more information too. I know that it's 18 steps for you to go to the loo. I know that it's 6 minutes if you need a poo. Now I've learned your patterns and your trends. Let me try to make amends. I know that today you spent longer on the toilet, and your measurements are off according to Fitbit. My recommendation is calculating. You should go see a doctor. I predict that something might be severely wrong here. Do you trust that I'm right, or does all of this give you an unnerving fright?
That's so good. And I love the fact that we make a space for different types of content at the lightning talks. Are you here tomorrow? Yeah. Would it be okay if we start off with you tomorrow? Thank you, Adam. So with that, we've hit the time limit for this evening. So I would like just one more round of applause for Sally and all the other first-time speakers this evening, please. Just massive round of applause. And then Chris.
Can I announce the winner?
Yeah, please
Very
do.
quickly. Very quickly.
Go.
So last night we had a high score of 79.9 decibels. Today we went way over that. So we had runners-up, which was 81.2 decibels, which was Heather with the Chaos game. But by far we could have stopped after the first presentation. Like all the other ones are like, yeah. We had a score of 82.7 decibels for Sean Sabbage.
Okay, with that, I'm going to hand back to Anne to close out today's session. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Yes, so I am about to close out, but before we close, I do actually have one thing that I need to ask of you and something that I need your help with. So Colin, I thought it was really interesting when he was talking about what I do is I help, and that's probably what most of us do, and I need your help. The other thing that Colin did is he also mentioned John Pinner, who set up PYCON UK. So in the schedule change to accommodate the rail strike that didn't come to pass, we moved the UKPA AGM to be the first session of tomorrow morning. The UKPA AGM, I realise, is probably not the most scintillating activity for a Sunday morning. Sorry, Owen, I'm sorry. However, the remit of the UKPA, they are charged with nurturing this community, with nurturing PYCON UK. And as part of the Constitution are required to hold an AGM where you, as members of UKPA, can hold us to account for decisions taken. For those decisions to be valid and ratified, we need to be quorate, which means we need enough people to turn up at the AGM, listen to the things we say, and vote on it. So my ask of you this evening is, please do come to the conference for 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, join in the AGM, and make sure that we can continue to do the things we want to do, and we can continue to be able to deliver this community to this community. So that was my key ask for today. I think I've covered all the things I needed to say. Perfect. So just really to close out another absolutely brilliant day. The sunshine likes to come right in through that window when I stand just by the microphone. Yes, the other thing someone mentioned to me is it might be worth mentioning that generally most paths do lead to Tiny Rebel, apparently, if you're going for social engagements this evening. And once again, please be friendly to people who are here for the first time, either today or at the conference, and be welcoming and share your plans so that others can join in. I wish you all a very good evening. We will be open in City Hall, I think, from 8:30 tomorrow, because nobody needs to be here at 8 o'clock. And please do come for the AGM at 9 o'clock. We will see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody.